Welcome.
Yes, welcome to the Elk Season Podcast, Episode 9. Today is Sunday. February-th.
February-th is a new term. I like it.
It's
27th.
The 27th, yeah. Yeah, the last day of the month is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
So February 27th.
Time flies.
And sponsors, we are sponsored this week by Dominos Pizza in Twin Falls, Idaho.
Pretty much, yeah.
My family. So how many members of our family have worked at Domino's Pizza here in Twin Falls?
2005, I started. I initially met Pat.
Yeah.
He'd just taken over the place. Hope
Right.
I can name him on live.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh, yeah.
Well, but
throw him right under the
it was
bus.
great working with him as I was working through the rest of my undergraduate work before I headed off for more graduate work. But then I don't know when you came on board with Pat.
2008. 2009, early 2009.
And I don't know if Curtis had started sometime before then.
I think it was after that.
Yeah.
Maybe before and after.
Either way, whenever they, working in the pizza industry, this, delivery drivers always needed, workers always needed. Seems to be a high turnover, but we need reliable people. And when it comes to our family, at least I know for you and me.
Yeah.
When we work in that industry, we're pretty dang reliable.
Yeah. You just show up to work every day and do what they tell you. It's pretty simple.
Take this pizza, deliver it to that house.
Take it to this house.
Take your tips home.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
I often miss it. I told you this before.
Yeah.
I want to be able to go sometime and just deliver for nostalgic reasons.
Just
I don't even want
to
paid.
be able to turn your brain off to just only those tasks.
And then have my car smell like pizza for a week.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't stop smelling that way when you deliver.
And since I started following the coin hunter on TikTok.
Yeah.
And now I started. I collected, star notes, and I was collecting change in different quarters.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. Anyways, it's really fun. But not only that, 3 of my sons have worked at Domino's.
Wow. Yeah.
My oldest son Harold, he runs a pizza place now in Vancouver. Woody, who is in the Air Force, speaks Farsi.
Yes.
And one of the first places Pat ever worked, he worked for some Persians.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he says you had to say Persia because if you said Iran, people would start freaking out.
Oh, wow.
But he say Persia. Oh, that's terrific. Because people that. Anyways,
Pizza, Domino's.
Woody and Rocky worked there for a while. So me, my 3 sons, my nephew, my brother, all worked for Pat at Domino's Pizza. And he said if we give him a good mention, solid mention on the podcast, we get a free cheesy bread.
Delicious.
I mean, it's only one, so either you get it this week and I get it next week, or we get it one.
Is it my choice? Or do we get to choose? Because there's cheesy bread, but there's different types, and there's the one with the what is
bacon
it?
jalapeno.
Well, that one's great, but then there's also the
spinach and feta.
Spinach and feta.
Yeah.
So my weight loss program just went backwards from just talking about eating this stuff.
And honestly, Domino's Pizza has been an institution in our house for Friday nights for many, many years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's just I have a 20-year-old autistic daughter.
Yeah.
And we like to have the same things for dinner every single day of the week so that she knows, hey, it's burgers and fries on Thursday. It's this, it's spaghetti. It's
predictable. Yeah.
Very predictable. And her brain just can relax because anytime, and you have kids.
Yeah.
You pick them up from school. The first question is, hey, what's for dinner? Usually, hey, what's for dinner?
Sometimes I guess it caught me off guard because my kids don't ask me that question. I should now ask them why they're not thinking about that and why they're not asking that important question. And maybe it's a sign that I have done something wrong with raising my children that they're not asking this question.
Yeah, maybe they just know because every time I come over here, your wife's in the kitchen cooking. I mean, except for last week. If she's all day Sunday, that's what she does. She cooks.
Pretty much.
I just want to stay here. See how it ends up.
Oh my gosh.
I don't get to eat here very often.
It's hard to lose weight in this house. Just forewarning you because it's such good food.
Yeah. So anyways, that's our sponsor this week is Domino's Pizza here in Twin Falls. Now with 2 locations. The one on Addison has a drive-through window.
Booyah.
Love it.
I once talked to Pat because when I moved to Pocatello, their Domino's had a drive-through. I would argue that the people at that store, and with all due respect, folks of Pocatello during 2008 to 2011, it was a little less than. It was not a pleasant experience to go there, so we did not do Domino's very much. And it was cool.
Oh, really?
They had a drive-through, but it was not. It was always they'd always get it wrong, or something was weird, and so we just didn't do it. But I told Pat, I go, Pat, they have a drive-through up there, and he's like, oh, I know, and he was like so jealous. So I was really excited when he opened up his second store, had a drive-through.
It's so nice.
So
it's so nice. I don't have to get out of my car. Don't have to drag the kids through a busy parking lot, because sometimes those drivers are like they're zooming in and out. They got other people to take care of. So if we want our family discount,
do we have family working there still?
Let's go with probably.
Maybe. Probably.
It'd be weird if we didn't.
I know.
All right. That's enough of a plug for our free cheesy bread. You throw in a couple of wings, maybe we'll talk some more.
Yeah.
What's next? Oh, announcements, right?
I don't know. I had name and credentials written down.
Oh, that's right.
And that should have probably happened before the sponsor, but we'll get it there.
My name is Harold Chambers.
My name is David Chambers.
My credentials for elk season is my passion for elk season. I love the mountains. I was born and raised in Montana. I love the mountains. I want to get out there every single day. I should be out there right now shed hunting, and I'm not.
Ditto what he said. Born and raised.
But I just have a deep passion for elk season, and archery elk is the greatest outdoor sport in North America.
And I think my credentials are, I love elk hunting because it's not easy. Because it is not simple.
Yeah.
Because it requires you to think, and I'm a cognitive person. I love to think things through. So it's the constant challenge of changing of variables that make me really love elk hunting, elk season, and just the outdoors.
And that's what I've told you before. I don't want to kill an elk. I want to know how to kill an elk every year. That's what I'm after. I'm after the education. I'm after the understanding of what's it going to do? Because there's those guys out there that get them every year.
Yeah,
I should be that guy by now.
You'd think.
I took some years off. I'll be honest with you. Having a family, you got to take some time off. But those are our credentials. We just love elk season, and I think about it a lot. I read a lot, and I made some TikToks yesterday because I wanted to talk about. Well, you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself.
Put the brakes on.
I'm getting ahead of myself. What's next?
Announcements.
So it's really important. Part of the elk season mission statement is to include more people in the greatest outdoor sport in North America, which is archery elk. And I want more people to be a part of that. I don't just want empty promises. I want to take a rookie. I've met enough people that say, oh, I've heard of elk hunting, but it's another world. I don't have anybody who can teach me. You need a mentor. You need, you need somebody that can take you out and show you. And we didn't have someone who could take us out and show us. We were the blind leading the blind.
and as a result, it's been an interesting journey as a first gen. And I'm curious to connect maybe sometime with other first gens and hear their stories and what they went through. And of course, even non-first gens, people who came up in a hunting family, have great stories to tell because you still have to learn these things. And so all of it, I feel, is important to hear and understand. But being a first gen hunter, really,
And we had a great conversation before the podcast started about bringing more archery elk hunters into the podcast. We don't have the capability for it right now,
not yet. But there's a list of things that Harold and I have talked about that we need to have in place to make sure we can accommodate more microphones. Spacing isn't really the issue; it's just arranging the room so we can have more places to sit. But
so we definitely want to include more people in the podcast. Because from rookies to veterans and whatever that spectrum brings, I want to talk to you. Yeah. I want to know what your journey was to elk season and how awesome is it? Because it's awesome. It's the greatest outdoor sport in North America. I think that's 3 times now. I've said it this podcast.
It's an important piece to why we're doing this.
It is. So. There we go. We marked that off. So we talked about rookies. What was that? What else was in the announcement? Oh, that's right. The scouting report.
I didn't write that down.
Okay.
I will write it down so I can.
So I just want to throw this out there. I want to do a scouting report. If you know somebody, or if you are somebody that's going to come and hunt Idaho this September, I will create, me and my brother, perhaps.
Perhaps.
We'll see.
I have a trailer.
I'll do it myself. We need a trailer for all the trail cams we got to set up.
That's what I'm talking about.
I want to create a scouting report and say, hey, these are the trails. This is where you park. This is where the trail cameras are. Here are the elk. Here's some spotting scope stuff. Here's some just some pictures that we took along the way. This is a scouting report for where you're going to hunt. And I would like someone who already has some decent YouTube material to say, yeah, I'll take that scouting report and I'll make a hunting video with that. And we can transfer what the scouting report is to what the hunting report is. And maybe if I have time this September, and I really don't, I'm a weekend warrior, but if I have time, I would love to go hunting with you. If that could happen. So that is the announcement. I've said it every week now for 3 or 4 weeks.
Absolutely.
And I will continue to say it. You can email us RockyMountainElkSeason@gmail.com.
It's probably going to be one of those situations where, it's like you have an assignment due, but you don't get it done till the last weekend. And so you're probably going to get hit up at the end of, August.
Fine.
Everybody's going to be like,
the scouting report will be done then, and I will publish it. And I'll go, here it is. No one knows where these are.
Yeah.
But I will give you the GPS of each one of the trail cams, and you can even go in and retrieve the trail cams. So, because so far we've never had to lock a trail cam.
Yeah, I've never had too many issues. Haven't had anybody show up on our trail cams, so that tells you something. Where we go, surprisingly, there's a fair number of hunters.
Yeah.
But they're not going to the areas that we go, where we've got some great, incredible photos.
Pictures, yeah.
What do we call it? The lounge? Is that the main place we go?
The lounge, yeah.
Yeah, the lounge. And they're just there all the time. But we've never captured another human being on those cameras.
I think I have a single picture. I don't know if I can dig it up. I have a hard drive that needs to be repaired. I have a single picture of 5 raghorns in the lounge, just hanging in the lounge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was our
late August.
Yeah.
Late August.
Right.
And no velvet. Their velvet's already off. So
yeah. So that's one of my favorite places. The lounge is a little bit different these days, but you still had good animals down there.
Yeah.
In the lounge just last year. So
during the snowstorm.
Yeah. Yeah. So the lounge is a great place, but it's surprising to me because of how what would you say it is proximal to trailheads?
Yeah.
From where we go. So but
getting there, proximal's one thing.
Yeah.
When you look on Google Earth and you say, well, we can hike from here to here to here. Oh, look, it's only 2.5 miles.
What's
6
up with that?
hours later.
Yeah.
It was only 2.5 miles. It's rough country.
Yeah, it is.
Google Earth is deceiving. So prepare. Hope you can manage 1 mile an hour.
Yeah, it's fun though when you get to know an area though. You find those you hike to certain places and then it's like you find the highway system that you can take to move quickly.
Yeah,
but still getting there.
Getting there's work.
Yeah,
and I know I climbed to a place called the top of the staircase.
Yeah,
and it's an hour from the car.
Oh my gosh,
it is 1 hour fully loaded.
Yeah, it's such a hike though. I did that hike at 2:30 in the afternoon during the heat of the day.
Same here.
But that was one of my, and I've talked to you about this before. Talking about trail, you didn't put this on the list, but
okay. Stories from the trail. That's right. We gotta give you some real stuff.
Yeah, trail. I had thought of a catchy name for this last week, but I forgot to write it down.
Do you remember what it is?
Trail Tales.
Trail Tales. Okay.
Trail Tales.
Okay.
Anyway. So I hiked up I got there actually. And so at the trailhead, there was a group of people loading up some llamas to head out. And so it was literally like, I'm this weekend warrior. It's the last weekend of hunting that year. And I might've already said versions of this story before, but I got there at 2:30 or no, it was 12:30 when I parked. I ate a little bit of lunch, got my gear on. So it was actually 1:30 when I heading up the staircase.
That's primetime heat.
Primetime heat, sun, no clouds, full sun. And I just start hiking up and I get to elevation and I was able to eventually come across some cows. And I had a cow at 50 yards. Beautiful, big, full size.
Was that clear over by the candy cane?
Yeah.
Or
this is where
once you're at elevation, I
was at elevation and I was headed towards the candy cane when I came across these cows. And I was almost ready to draw when I heard a bugle, and then I thought, oh, because I knew that there was nobody at the trailhead. That the crews had left,
right?
You know, so I was kind of up there by myself. So I was up there and I heard a bugle, and I'm like, that's a bull. I kind of want to see this guy, and so I bugled back, and sure, you know, one of the things that we've learned about bugling is, you know, if you're not done with your bugle and you're getting a return, most likely to be an animal.
Yeah.
And this thing cut me off. This thing was aggressive. But then I muffed the bugle. I was playing back and forth, and my reed turned in my mouth wrong, and I went, you know, just some weird bleep came out, and he got quiet. But one of the tactics that I used that I had read about is continue to go through the woods like you're an elk. Continue to make locator type sounds.
Yeah.
And so
elk sounds.
I would just stop every now and then, and I'd bugle. And I didn't know if this was going to turn. This is the first time I've ever done this kind of tactic, and I'm by myself, and I find this perfect place to sit down. And I'm like, okay, I'll just sit here and I'll wait. It was like 6 o'clock. Wait till 6:30. 6:35 is like basically you're done hunting. So it's light is fading very fast. So I only have a little bit of time left. So I'm sitting there, and the light fading, and I just get impatient. So I start to try to hike stepstone skip from tree to tree,
right?
Thinking that it was going to be
cover
advantageous.
To cover.
But that bull was coming in to check on me because I had continued to make noise. But then because I continued to move, I saw this guy come through these trees. He saw me and he turned off. And he kept talking to me after that, but it was way too late. The sun had gone down. Not long after I spooked him, he'd gone off. But they were talking that night. It was really cool.
And he was pretty. He was a big fella. He was a big fella.
You know, when you see and you can see it in some of these videos that we watch with Elk 101, where they get a good 6 point down, you know, just a real solid, I don't know what you'd call it, you know, where the antler comes out of the head at. It just looks big
base.
And thick.
Yeah.
And I'll just never forget. I was 35 yards away from where this bull came out of the trees. And had I been sitting where I was sitting, he would have walked right up to me and wouldn't have seen me because I would have been still. So I screwed that one up. But lesson learned, successful hunt, unsuccessful harvest, obviously.
I left one of my calls about 100 yards from that scene.
Really?
Just this last year. Yeah, I need to go back and get it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Unless, what's funny is we've gone back to retrieve stuff that we have accidentally left and we can't find it. And we know exactly where we left it. So there's enough hunters up there that I'm pretty sure have found either an arrow that I've lost.
Pair of gloves.
We know for a fact a pair of my gloves showed up. The John story is coming one of these days.
Yeah, it will.
And then was it my release from 2 years ago? I left it under our what we call the leaning tree, and it was like
Yeah, I figured that was going to be gone. That's a popular ridge.
Yeah,
I mean, relatively speaking.
Relatively, yeah. Anyway,
stories from the game trail. So stories from the game trail is probably one with animal language for me too, because I have been studying animal language and elk language, and I read a lot of books, and we're talking about a couple of the books I read this week. But one of the books I read was a book from Jared Diamond. Jared Diamond is the author of Guns, Germs, and Steel.
Okay.
So other than germs, that sounds like a great title. Right. So, but it's fascinating, and what he says about animal language will make you rethink what elk are doing when they talk. And I found a biologist that I follow, and I really like what he says. And I took his class, I think, every year for 4 years. I just took it every July and August, to prepare myself for elk season. And with the first time it applied was I was in the backyard. And I knew that these guys, we had separated. You didn't want to go further into the backyard.
I was a little tired that day.
That's all right.
Didn't want to bring my grumpiness with you, so I'm like, I'll just chill here.
So I go, you know what? I'm gonna continue on. But we knew that we heard some bugles coming down from some elk talk coming from a wallow, and there was something so inconsistent about what they were saying as elk that I'm like, I don't need to respond to that. I'm not going to try to call them. And every time, and it just got reinforced every time they said something, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Why are they saying that? But there was another elk responding way up on the hill over the ridge. And I'm like, well, if those guys are going to keep him talking, I'm just going to walk up to him.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And I jumped a cow But I mean, I heard him screaming. I could not see him.
Wow.
But I heard him scream. And I took 2 more steps, and the cow popped up, and they ran off, and I heard him bugle another 300 yards away minutes later. Then I decided to hike down just to see what those guys, to make sure that what I heard was hunters. And sure enough, they were just sitting by a wallow making a bunch of elk noises.
Yeah.
Nothing consistent about what they were saying as elk at all. And so that was nice. It was nice to know. Oh, and you watch it. When you watch Destination Elk, these guys go, yep, that's a hunter.
Yeah.
They get fooled once in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, but there's some good callers out there.
But even I don't know if you've ever had this, but I think I've called hunters in two different times.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
So it's I don't know if I'm doing something right or if it's just there's not enough knowledge about elk noises that it's just easy to fool anybody.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, if some people are real energetic and they just march through the mountains calling, waiting for a response. And when they get that response, they try to mimic, and they do a good job, and they're successful at it. You know, there's different kinds of temperament of bull elk. Some bull elk are like, he sounds scary, I'm gonna go. And some bull elk are like, and we've seen them, oh yeah?
Oh yeah.
Oh, they just come right at you.
Yeah.
If you're the kind of guy, you got enough energy to hike those many miles and just bugle until somebody goes, oh yeah? And they just come at you.
Yeah.
And you shoot them. That's a great tactic.
Yeah.
That really works for a lot of guys. But I just want a deeper understanding of what they're saying and what it means. So good stuff. Good stuff. We're going to talk about the Destination Elk, where there's a couple episodes of Destination Elk this week. Interesting stuff. Some interesting stuff that happened. But I want to talk about that later. I really want to talk about Teddy Roosevelt and the Big Burn. Actually, Timothy Egan wrote a book called The Big Burn, Teddy Roosevelt and the Fire That Saved America. I had to read it as Idaho history in my Idaho history class in college.
Okay.
And my professor from Idaho State University, he's like, "Oh, read the." He would assign like 6 books a semester. I mean, full big. Oh, I loved it. And so I got some. I love those books, especially when you can find the audiobook version. And Timothy Egan's book, The Big Burn, Teddy Roosevelt and the Fire That Saved America, was very enlightening to me. I didn't have a really good concept of where our public lands come from. Like why do we have hundreds of millions of acres of public lands, and what is happening to those public lands? But the Teddy Roosevelt story, the Big Burn story, and if you're driving anywhere and you want to understand where our public lands come from, you start with the book The Big Burn by Timothy Egan, because it is the birth of forestry. Forestry wasn't even a subject in school.
Sure.
They had to start that. Gifford Pinchot, John Muir, something that I learned from this book. John Muir and Teddy Roosevelt were at odds with each other.
Yeah. Teddy
Roosevelt liked to hunt. He was a good hunter. And Teddy Roosevelt's my favorite president. You ask me any day of the week, Teddy Roosevelt. And John Muir, and I read his biography, he wanted to preserve everything as it is and not kill anything. Did you know those two went camping together?
I think I'd come across that story.
Whatever that movie is, I want to watch that movie.
Yeah, okay.
if somebody can make that.
Yeah.
John Muir, they were at odds with each other with the same kind of goals.
Yeah.
It was very interesting. And so this new author, Mark Kenyon, who I just finished reading his book this week, it's called That Wild Country. And he had me at the title because I say that a lot. That wild country. You're out west, you hear wolves howling at night, you see grizzly bear tracks, you see wolf tracks the size of Belgian waffles.
Yeah.
You know you are in wild country. And I love being in that wild country. So Mark Kenyon, he's I don't know, 30 years old. I don't know how old he is, but he's coming to understand his relationship with the public lands, and he wants to investigate, hey, where do our public lands come from? And so he chronicles some of his own personal adventures with with some of his understanding and the history, not only with Teddy Roosevelt and everything they did to really establish a lot of public land, a lot of federal lands, really important. But who came after that? Because it wasn't done. And the next one was Bob Marshall.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
Bob Marshall was hugely instrumental in creating the Bob Marshall Wilderness, which is
familiar.
just southern south. I know you've hiked 50 miles.
15 to 20 miles into it. Yeah,
That's a lot of country. When we go 4 miles in and we feel deep,
yeah,
and you're 14, 15 miles in, son, that is wild country.
yeah. It was awesome.
Wild.
I've been
country.
longing to get back and retrace my steps, but that was 1995. It's been a while.
It's been a few weeks. So he sort of chronicles this, but and then he's conflicted because he goes to Moab, right? And he goes, I love this. Utah's beautiful. Yeah. Utah's wild country is something else. And he goes to Moab, but he goes to Moab when there's all these guys in side-by-sides and four-wheelers and Jeeps, and they're all driving through, revving their engines, drinking beers, screaming all night. And he has to get away. He has to leave. Because it's not the public land he wanted.
Sure.
And he goes for a hike. He goes for a hike later that day, and he's wearing a shirt that says public landowner. And he runs into another guy who says, hey, thank you. Yeah, I recognize that shirt. That's great. We're all public landowners.
Yeah.
Those guys in the four-wheelers and side-by-sides are using their public lands the way they want to.
Yeah.
Like I want to use my public lands the way I want to.
Sure.
They're using it in a different area, in a different way than I prefer, but it's our public land. Even though I would be at odds with revving engines and camping with lots of beer. I'm not totally at odds with that.
I'm not totally at odds with the beer, no. But
to be at odds with that, but to have so much in common with these people that just can't afford their own ranches. And you can't.
Right.
And I've known that for a long time. I'm never going to own a 1 million acre ranch and just have my own private property to hunt on. I depend on public land. And so do you. Most of you do. And so there's a story this week that we have in our files. I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up on YouTube. But it's 15.2 billion reasons. Was it billion or million?
I think a billion.
I think it's billion reasons why sportsmen matter to our public lands. And as sportsmen, I would argue we give a lot more money to the states than some of those 4x4 guys, right? I don't know what kind of permits you need to go down to Moab. Maybe you do need a permit. But, the most popular mountain biking trail in the world is in Moab.
Billion. Yeah.
Billion. 15 billion reasons. So Mark Kenyon chronicles, amongst other characters, Ammon Bundy, who is for, and you got to be careful with how you say this, because these guys are like, give us our public lands back. They want to take the public land from federal level to the state level.
Yeah,
and so so Mark Kenyon sort of discusses what that would mean for the states. And if you think all the way back to Teddy Roosevelt and the fire that saved America, that's a lot of money to fight those fires.
Yeah.
If that money has to come from the state, they're going to have to sell our public land to pay for it. Mm-hmm. Right now, as it is federal land, the federal government is in charge of taking care of it. So great, I pay them taxes. Please take care of our federal land.
Yeah.
Don't give it back to the state. So what they're trying to do now is death by 1,000 cuts. They're trying to cut funding to all of the federal programs to turn our federal lands into junk, into something that, obviously the federal government can't take care of the land. You have to give it back to the state now. That is a death by 1,000 cuts.
Okay.
If you cut funding from the feds and the states have to take over, the states will take over, and they can and will sell some of those public acres.
Yeah.
And that would be sad. That would be devastating. So I ran a couple hashtags on my TikTok account Both of them were public landowner. So, man, if you are out there, you know you're not going to buy a big ranch someday. You're probably not. You are a public landowner, and you want to stay a public landowner.
I would agree with that.
So, anyways, it really, really great. If you can look, if you want to understand where our public lands come from, please read, because it's all part of the equation. Another part of the equation is another story that we have, which was what was it? Are too many sportsmen on our public lands? This is something we're going to have to manage and have to come to grips with.
Is hunter recruitment really hurting hunting opportunity in the West?
Yeah. So he talks about his own role. I read a little bit of that article. He talks about his own role. As I love hunting. I love talking about it. But let's talk about A River Runs Through It.
Yeah.
Okay?
Great movie.
A River Runs Through It ruined fly fishing in Montana.
Really?
In my expert medical opinion, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 19, 20 at the time, and I had been fly fishing for years, and I loved it. I mean, some high mountain lakes with no name, with native cutthroat, and with a little bit of butter and alpine spice. It's a Montana thing. You ever heard of alpine spice?
No.
Oh, it's a Montana. Oh, it's so good. Put alpine spice on everything. Anyway, okay. Especially fish, especially fresh fish. But all of a sudden, I met people that were moving to Montana in large numbers.
Okay.
Because they wanted to fly fish. They wanted to live that Brad Pitt dream. They wanted to be that guy who could, what is it called? Shadow cast?
Yeah.
Right? And, the guys I met, they could roll cast. They get a little bit of line on the water and roll it out there further. And, I could get out there. I'm trying to get out there 70 feet. Just for the sake of 70 feet. Not that that's where the fish are, but look how far I can cast.
Nice.
And my father-in-law, he was like, hey, this fly costs $1.29. That's the same as a dozen night crawlers, okay? You catch a dozen fish on this fly, or no more flies. Right? He was very serious about the economics of fly fishing. But and that's because we had limited resources. Yeah. Now you see, guys, if you drive up to Sun Valley, anytime you drive up to Sun Valley in the summertime, they're trying to get this Brad Pitt dream lifestyle, and they have waders that go up to their chest, and they have special fly rod holders that fit on their truck.
Don't knock it till you try it.
And I know waders are nice. I know waders are nice. And I know that there's something pure about stomping over the rocks in tennis shoes, because I've been there a million times. And to have the cold water
I can't say that I want to live the Brad Pitt dream, but I want to live the waiter's dream.
Really? That's your dream?
Well, it's not.
It's a dream.
It's a goal, because I'm uncomfortable in my tennis shoes in the water. I'd rather have the gear that's going to keep me dry, except you got to have that band around the top so you don't fill it with water and sink and die.
Yeah.
But I it's just something I haven't got. But I have, full disclosure, I have never fly fished successfully.
Oh, really?
I have a fly rod.
It's not easy.
That I've never used.
Yeah, there's a level of difficulty to it. And we came up in different eras.
And what's funny is I grew up on the little rod and reel setup,
bobber,
crick fishing.
Yeah.
And so when
yes.
Wow, well, my brain just hit a roadblock here.
Today.
Yeah, today, sometime, please show up. A River Runs Through It. When that movie came out, living in Montana during that time, I was sort of gung-ho. I was very black and white in my thinking. And so I was like 11 or 12. And that's typical at that age, to be kind of like, I'm on one side of the fence. Just, this is the best.
Right.
And so I had that rod and reel, and we'd gone out and gone lake fishing. We'd done crick fishing. And it was just, what I knew was the traditional rod and reel, not a fly rod, just a traditional rod and reel. And so when I run into people at that age who are doing fly fishing, I'm like, that's dumb. Quit trying to be like the movie.
Right.
And then I had a friend in junior high whose dad ran a fly shop.
Oh, really?
And I thought it was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. Yeah. I'm like, you're never going to make money doing that. Of course, who gets the last laugh there, because it's obviously an industry that's just continued to grow. The movie propelled it into the spotlight.
It did. And so, by the way, I have an idea for Elk Season the movie.
Oh.
It's not a joke, and it would... Oh, my God. I know I've told you about it. Okay. I know I've told you about it. So we could do Elk Season the musical.
Sure.
I could totally... Who's that guy? Who's the guy from Hamilton?
Lin-Manuel Miranda?
Yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda. If I could get his help, we could write, I'm telling you, Elk Season the musical would be a sensation. And it would ruin elk hunting.
Sure.
And the same thing with Elk Season the movie. This a good story around something so fantastic. It is the greatest outdoor sport. It is the greatest adventure you can have as an adult in this country, and to combine it with many other emotions, with hunting with your brother, with success and failure and storms, and to put all that together in a movie, and to get people to fall. If we could get Brad Pitt in, it'd be better.
Yeah,
but you get people to fall in love with this idea, and it would really start to fill up, and that's where we're at right now, because it used to be, hey, you see one Brad Pitt movie, and hey, all of a sudden you want to be a Montana fly fisherman. But
after Legends of the Fall, I'm sure a lot of grizzly bears lost some of their claws.
I heard the story of the three-toed grizzly so many times growing up before that movie.
Okay.
You have no idea.
So
everybody claimed to have taken a claw from a grizzly, and later had an opportunity to kill that three-toed grizzly and denied it. Said, no, I can't kill him. I already took a piece of this grizzly. I've heard that story multiple times before I saw that movie.
That's fair.
So I was like, when I watched that movie, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they just did that. I'm pretty sure that's Skeeter. Anyway,
back on tag.
Back to ruining elk hunting for everyone.
Yeah,
with a movie, which I don't want to do. But because it's not a single movie anymore, it's a million Instagrammers. It's a million idiots like me on TikTok. Excuse me. A million people like me on TikTok saying, hey, archery elk is the greatest outdoor sport in North America. And it is. And I want lots of people to come out and enjoy it. And it means that I may have to someday apply for the right and maybe be denied hunting elk in my own state.
Yeah, and having come across that story as you're talking, the thought that I had heading into this conversation is just that the role of conservation and active management is going to have to increase to provide the opportunities, and it will come at a cost as more people become introduced and interested in some particular aspect of anything. Yeah, it's going to put pressures on how you have to work with that. And so it's just a matter of being open-minded and realistic to the likelihood that, our population continues to grow, though it's slowed down here in the U.S., but that doesn't mean, population interest shifts from one thing to another. And so as demand goes up and pressures go up, things are going to have to change. So what I hope is that active management becomes malleable and flexible to the changes, because as things increase in pressure, you're also going to have to account for when those pressures decrease, and hopefully have something. My frustration with legislative moves is that it takes forever and a day for anything to be changed. Yeah. So by the time you initiate something, conditions have already changed. So when you change it back, now you need it again or something else. So I kind of hope that management moving forward and legislative processes can account for that and be better and more proactive with allowing us to be flexible as we need in a realistic way, rather than letting things get to a point where it nearly kills off something or makes it just really dramatic.
Right. And so we do need to limit the number of people hunting. Right? Not everybody gets to do it. Good thing for us, not everybody wants to. And if we have trail restrictions, there's a new, I follow an e-bike company. I love electric bikes, but they now have an interactive map on their website of where it's legal to use an electric bike and where it's not legal to use an electric bike. And it's right up there with llamas, and I've expressed my interest in mountain bike hunting to you before. And I think they make less impact on the environment than a horse. But horses are allowed in a lot of places where bicycles aren't.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's a lot to it, and we talk about it every week here on the Elk Season podcast because it is a continuing story.
In order to keep doing what you love, you have to stay invested in that process, and you have to be at least somewhat up to date. And I think part of at least one of the pieces to this podcast is to try to help us stay in touch with that reality. Yeah. It's something that we haven't done as much of in the past that we know is important because we keep talking about those things, but now to take a more active role, to advocate and voice concern, to be a part of the debate, not that argument. It's a debate in terms of what we should do, and hopefully have a collaborative effort. But just know that somewhere along the lines, not everybody's going to be happy. Maybe me, maybe you.
Right.
And so keep an open mind and understand that we're all trying to figure this out together.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be an argument, doesn't have to be a fight, but it can be a collaboration. And
it should be. As much as John Muir and Teddy Roosevelt collaborated.
Right.
To save some wild places. And, one of the quotes in the Mark Kenyon book was wild places should exist even if all we get to do is drive to the edge and look into it. Man, sometimes that's all I do get to do is drive to the edge and look into it and imagine.
A whole host of places in my life have shown up now where I've just stood at the edge.
And stared into it, man. Just stare into the wilderness. So many dirt roads in Idaho through the Copper Basin. Yeah. You can look up into Wild Horse Creek and just, I would love to go there. But I can imagine what it's like up there right now.
Yeah.
Just wild, wild country.
Yeah.
And so it's a continuing story, but we need sportsmen. Sportsmen give 15.2 billion reasons a year. And in the book with Mark Kenyon, he explains that, hey, there's these political these political guys that want the land back from the federal government. And there were state legislators who said, yeah, that's a good idea. And sportsmen in that state stood up and said, I don't think it's a good idea. And they voiced their opinion. And the politicians understood how much money that meant. And they said, I withdraw this bill. So thank you for all the sportsmen that have done that. Please continue to pay attention to what's happening in your state and what a bill really means. Because, when you say the Patriot Act, when you say no child left behind, when you say these, it's a ridiculous statement. When you say, give us our land back, whoa, give it back to who? So give us back our land, and they want to sell it to the highest bidder. And if you're not going to buy your own ranch, you better care about public lands.
And other ways to stay involved, by the way, with the active management process is to not ignore those emails from, particularly here in Idaho, the Idaho Fish and Game Department sends out emails regularly, and they sent a survey last week.
They did? Did you do it?
I completed the survey. It had to do with
that's one.
Well, they get thousands. I know thousands of people do these surveys because I've accessed this information before, and I was like, well, this is kind of interesting. It's telling me something about harvest rates versus success rates, and so if you're I would just encourage you to keep an email from the Fish and Game, because they're going to send out these surveys. How many hunters did you see? What was it like when you experienced these other hunters? And so this is an opportunity for you to have a voice collectively together about were they in state or out of state. So these were the kinds of questions that had to do with mule deer hunting, but at the same time, it's one of those pieces to the puzzle of advocating for that management, conservation, and engagement. So don't throw those emails aside.
Your voice is needed in the choir.
Yes.
It is needed to be heard. The choir needs to be loud, and we need many, many voices saying the same thing. And so, okay. All right. Point taken. I'll do a survey. I'll check my email. I never check my email.
And if you check your spam, because these emails sometimes get kind of sent to a different folder because it's maybe something you haven't engaged before, and your email is just getting smarter. It's like, oh, you haven't touched that, so I'm going to throw that to the spam. But it doesn't hurt. I think it helps. And so I've been more active in trying to make sure I take time to do those surveys. And they don't really take that long. They're set up actually to be even quicker now because it's online, takes you to the site. And if you have the app, I have the Idaho Fish and Game app. I'm already logged in, so it connects, and it sent me the email because I had tags here for mule deer hunting,
Right?
And so it was sort of follow up from the previous season,
Oh, okay.
and it was really only for last season. How did you experience your deer hunt last season? I think I did another one on elk. I can't remember though. Maybe I didn't do that one, but not that I didn't mean to.
They need our data. They need our data. That's a fair point. And
yeah.
Okay.
Unless you got a grudge against the Fish and Game, but I don't know how not filling out the data is going to help you out if you have that grudge. So,
and there's a Fish and Game officer I've seen who runs dogs after cats up in our mule deer country.
Okay.
Yeah.
My brain went, what does that have to do with? And then I was thinking domestic dogs against domestic cats, but that's where my brain went.
Okay.
And my brain had to convert it. I was like, no. He's talking about mountain lions, dude.
Yeah, he has collared hounds that go after cats. They go after mountain lions. Sorry,
I saw that cat this year, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've seen him in that place. Well, we've seen their tracks in those places before around our tent.
We've had trail cams. And then an actual live sighting last year, which was
so crazy. There's a lot of cats, and we do have a story coming up. I want to finish off our public land because I read the book by Mark Kenyon. It's called That Wild Country. Really, really would recommend that book to you. It's also available on Audible. Same with Timothy Egan's book, The Big Burn: Teddy Roosevelt and the Fire That Saved America. There's one quick story from the Big Burn I want to tell because there came a point in the land argument where Teddy Roosevelt was going to lose control. He didn't have Congress on his side. And it came down to, okay, in 2 weeks or 1 week, it was a very, very short amount of time, you have to sign this into law. And in that 1 or 2 weeks, him and Gifford Pinchot had maps strewn about the White House and everywhere. And they collectively, I forget how many millions of acres they set aside. And there was nothing that anybody could do about it. They had the executive privilege or whatever.
Yeah.
And they set it aside. And everybody that didn't want those laws was super, super upset about it. But the debt of gratitude every sportsman in this country owes to Teddy Roosevelt and Gifford Pinchot cannot be understated and underestimated.
Fair. That's fair.
So please read those books, understand some more about your public lands. I love to read books about the West. I have some old trapper books too that are just fun stories.
Yeah.
But we do need you involved, and thank you for your contribution. Everybody talks about their elk tag soup.
Yeah.
Right? And I think you should frame your unnotched tags as with gratitude to your donation to conservation. This is my donation, and it's a lot more than a lot of other people give. So please don't just make tag soup, buddy. That is framed contribution to conservation.
Absolutely.
And we are grateful for I could cover walls with my unfilled tags.
And absolutely. And ultimately what you're saying, just to sum up, what we get to experience every year, every fall, every September may not have happened had it not been for these individuals through history.
Yes, very much so.
Perspective helps.
Yeah.
Yes.
And having that perspective, I don't know, fills me with a ton of gratitude for what Teddy Roosevelt and Gifford Pinchot did.
It could be much different, folks.
Yeah, very, very
much different.
All right, let's continue with our conservation news. We got some stuff. We're at 50 minutes already.
Oh, wow.
And I know.
That's great.
I'm very excited.
Hey.
So
I'm just in the tangents folder.
Okay, great.
We have ethics course required for shed hunting. What is this about?
So, why would you need ethics? When you hear about it, what's your thought?
Well, it takes me back to one of my first experiences here in Idaho. I went out with a hunting party. And in the mid-90s, the Idaho Fish and Game had special rules about shed hunting in certain hunting units.
Really?
And so I was with this hunting party. I've talked to you about it.
Yeah.
We were out and about, and I found a really old mule deer shed. And I picked it up, and my friend's father was there, and he goes, "Hey, you're going to have to leave that out here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, he handed me the reg book. And in the reg book, it said, you in this section are not allowed to pick up sheds for any reason because of the need for certain critters or animals and the way that they go.
The ecosystem.
So the ecosystem required those sheds to stay behind. It's changed since then. Okay. Because we can go find those sheds in that same unit now. But in the mid-90s, that was the rule for that unit. And that really stuck with me. So when I see an ethics about shed hunting, it makes me wonder what that could mean. What does it mean?
This is about pressuring the animals.
Okay.
This is the ethics of pressuring the animals. You may see animals that you're like, oh, they've been hanging there for a while. Let's go push them out of there and see if there's any sheds. Listen, this is the time of the year, and it's only in late February, early March. They are the very last of their fat stores. Yeah. You push these animals at this time, it is unethical. It could cause death, and it could cause maybe abortion, or it could cause difficulty with the coming, birthing season.
Sure.
And before the fresh grasses come out, and they can start rebuilding those fat stores. So that was a lot of it.
Yeah, so that's a great angle to consider too, because we've talked about unintended pressures on animals and how that leads. So in that, especially with mule deer, and it was in one of our podcasts we talked about how just in the winter the kill off rate for mule deer calves can be
huge,
fawns rather.
Yeah,
and so. It would make sense that until you get later in the spring, it would be ethical to leave it alone.
When I saw the title of the article, I thought, that you stay on private land, or stay on public land. You can do it here, you can't do it here. I wasn't thinking conservation, and hey, this type of pressure can move animals unnecessarily during a time of the year where their energy stores are really, really low.
So. Yeah, it makes me less anxious to want to get out and shed hunt in terms of because in the last couple of weeks we've talked about it, we should just start figuring this out. But now I'm kind of like, well, maybe not necessarily. I know other people are probably doing it. Yeah. But I would say my ethics just vibe is to wait.
And really, if you want to get out there and shed hunt, just be mindful.
Yeah.
Just say, these are really fresh elk tracks. Let's make sure not to intrude too much further. We know we can come back here in a few weeks. And the ethics does lighten up as we get into later March and April. Yeah. It does. There's plenty of grass out there. They're going to be fine, and they can be pushed a little bit more.
Yeah. No, it's a great thing to consider.
Yeah. It's a good article.
So it's that ongoing conversation that we need to remind ourselves of. And that's what I love about, pardon me for sounding cliche here, but Native American interaction with nature, to being respectful. Right. So just to me, I really love that idea of if I'm going to give, I have to, or if I'm going to take, I have to give kind of thing. It's that ebb and flow of interaction with our environment.
Yeah. Yeah. And try to understand that relationship. And it's a lifetime to understand it.
Yeah. Mountain goats are being culled in Teton. Yeah. This still blows my mind. How are they not native?
Non-native. The big, beautiful Teton Mountains have mountain goats in them, high on the rocky cliffs.
I would expect that there.
They put them there.
Dang it.
They were put there. They are not native. But they're very, very close natives. Right? I mean, we talked before the podcast about, because I was curious too. I'm like, what do you mean they're invasive species?
Come on now. It's not like the murder hornets. Come on.
Right. So they do come from a place in Alaska. They come down through Banff. And if you look at a map on Wikipedia, it'll show you, hey, this is where they exist. And they're really not in Wyoming. And they're not in Utah. And they're not in Colorado. But
weird.
They're not supposed to be. That's not their native land. We moved them there so we could, as a sport species, so we could do that. And
that's not unheard of.
No, sadly. And
brown trout, or not brown trout, but brook trout.
Brook trout. Yeah. Great sport fish.
Horribly invasive.
Yeah, that's why there's a daily limit of 25.
Ask Pat about
brook trout
sometime.
Oh yeah.
Pat was mentioned at the beginning of the podcast in case you're tuning in late. Anyway.
So yeah, who knew? Mountain goats are invasive species in some places right here in the Intermountain Northwest. They belong in places here in the Intermountain Northwest, and there are places they don't belong.
Sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I have had encounters with mountain goats in York. There's a place outside of Helena called York, and a place called Refrigerator Canyon.
Okay.
And to get within 5 feet, 5 feet. It felt like 5. I mean, it's probably 25 feet.
Sure.
But they're so big and so white.
Yeah. Oh, they're amazingly white.
And so not afraid of you. I just about dropped a brick in my pants. It was exciting. And then later we went back, and you could see all the baby mountain goats running along the side of the cliff, and you're sure that they're just going to fall to their death.
Yeah, but they're goats.
You stand there staring through binoculars till your face hurts. And your arms can't hold up binoculars anymore because you're like, one of those babies is going to fall. I just know it.
It's crazy. My first mountain goat experience was not necessarily in a wild set. I mean, they were in the wild, but it wasn't like I was hiking in the wild.
Yeah.
I was on a riverboat trip to the gates of the mountains up north of Helena.
Yeah.
And the boat slowed down. It was funny because everybody's just kind of paying attention. We're just sitting on this jet boat, and all of a sudden the jet boat motor changes, and he flips a big U-ey, and the boat captain says, "Over here on the side, we have a mountain goat," and it was huge.
Yeah.
And we kind of got close to the riverbank, but there the goat was, and that was really impressive. And then the only other times I've seen goats are up where we hunt.
Yeah. So anyway, mountain goats, who knew? It was just a surprise to me to know that they're invasive species in some places.
Yeah. My brain still hurts on that one.
All right. What do we got next?
Live the dream with Tony and Lori.
What?
Oh, sorry, that's what it says here. I should have read the paragraph, not the heading. This has to do with if you hunt big game in the West, do yourself a favor, spend more time managing predators.
Yeah.
So there's a picture of a guy holding a mountain lion.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, and you're not a big fan of hunting predators.
But I understand and appreciate the active management of predators, given that man's pressure has changed everything for all species.
And a lot of people are upset that Idaho have called in contractors to trap wolves, to trap and kill wolves.
Yeah.
And it's because not enough sportsmen are active in managing. Hey, you want to be active in managing the elk population? We're not going to have as much elk population to manage if somebody doesn't get out there and help manage the wolf population. And so and
what's weird about this is it's kind of this nationwide. Idaho gets kind of a black eye nationally because our Forest Service rangers were up there just shooting wolves because we have to actively manage it somehow. You remember that from a couple of years ago? And it was like, how dare you, Idaho? Well, look. Could they have done it differently? Possibly, but at the same time, are they just trying to figure out an active management strategy to help us have healthy populations, have healthy opportunities, have healthy conservation?
Yeah.
I think it's just part of it. There can be some uncomfortable growing pains, but for the most part.
And this is one of them. I think hunting wolves is one of them because I was on the fence. Well, I really wasn't on the fence. I always thought I would like to hunt wolves. They belong here. And I would like to hunt them. I think it would be great if the population was big enough. Now I'm like, I'm old. There's not enough reasons to go hunt a wolf because, there's not a lot of meat there. It should be fun, but I'm a busy guy. I got 5 kids. Man, I got 5 kids to feed. Have you seen the new Total Recall?
No.
You should. It's awesome.
Okay.
They do a great job.
I was told by everybody who hates the first one to not even think about the second one. So, but then I just want to troll them with lines from the first one.
Oh, it's so good. 2 weeks.
2 weeks. My kids are still saying that from that trip from 3 years ago.
Anyway, how did we end up there?
Because you have 5 kids to feed.
I got 5 kids to feed. Anyway, so yeah, I'm not into. If we did see a mountain lion this fall, I'm like, ooh, you want to go back and get your rifle?
Right.
I know you got a tag. He was 1.5 miles away.
Yeah.
And leaving, but we saw him in daylight. And that was awesome.
That's something else. You have some celebrity, you and your family, on the local magazine.
Yeah,
here.
that was just to show you. There's a local magazine here, the Canyon Community Connector, and me and my family. And it's only because of my wife. My wife is a CrossFit coach, and lots of people at the CrossFit gym just absolutely adore her. And she is a fantastic personality. And everyone at the gym is afraid of her and wants to do nice things for her. So she will make them do less burpees. It's that kind of thing. And everybody at the gym is like, how do you live with that? I go, shh, nothing. It's nothing.
I often tell people, if you ever meet my sister-in-law at the pack, she'll get you to do anything extra. I mean, I don't know what it sounds like. I just heard anecdotally from people that know her that she can help you get to however many extras you need in terms of push-ups, pull-ups, whatever. Yeah. She's just a great coach.
She's a good coach. She's been studying it for more than a decade now. And people really like her and appreciate her. And some people go, hey, you have a 5-year, you're 44 years old, you have a 5-year-old, you have a 20-year-old autistic living at home, and you have this dynamic family. Let's do a story on your family. So that was the story, and it was fun. And people saw it, and Pat from Domino's is like, hey, did you plug Domino's for me?
So, got 2 bear stories. The first one is even on steep mountain slopes above 11,000 feet, hikers will come across in the Yellowstone ecosystem grizzly bears.
Yep. And they're doing it on purpose.
Oh, really?
It says in the article they're doing it on purpose. They want the Instagram.
Oh my god!
They want the post. They want the Facebook post.
I once aspired to go in the southwest corner, hike in from the southwest corner into the main station. I wanted to go on a backpacking trip.
Yeah.
But I'm a little bit nervous about the grizzly, and so I can bring my bear spray, but still,
you should read Mark Kenyon's book again, because he chronicles some. As much as you talk about grizzlies, grizzly encounters are exceedingly rare. And the first time he has a grizzly encounter, it's 100 and some yards away. It's plenty distance. It's like, let's go back to town. I mean, he's shaken by it, and it shows in his book.
Wow.
So yeah, people are looking for those encounters because they want to be the one to get 1 million views on their posts.
Yeah.
And it's a dangerous game.
I just want to have a nice, fun, exciting hiking experience in Yellowstone, but I'm not a thrill seeker, and I don't care for the Instagram posts. As you know, I'm a little disconnected on the social media.
Yes, I know.
However, the other bear story is this, and I sent this to you because you once aspired to be a pseudonym Hank the Tank. And so 500 pair bound, known as Hank the Tank, breaks into another Lake Tahoe home, lost all fear of people. And I've talked about this before, and if you watch the show Fatal Attractions, you don't feed the bears, and the bears will do like Hank the Tank here. I don't know if people were feeding him or he just figured out the knack for where to find the food, and of course causes problem, which you also showed me that video of the bear that got into that person's vehicle.
That's right.
Which might have been Hank. I don't know. But
here's a caveat to that story, though. Poor Hank the Tank was a scapegoat. There was a string of robberies happening around Lake Tahoe.
No.
Yeah, and they tried to blame it on the bear. So while Hank the Tank may have lost some fear of humans and has had some break-ins, a string of those break-ins were real break-ins, not from a bear, but from burglars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's
People.
everything is an ongoing story. Just because we say Hank the Tank broke into a bunch of homes, it doesn't mean it's all 100% real.
Right.
Not all confirmed. So when people go, Hank the Tank took my jewelry case. Well, that doesn't make sense. Your picnic basket, maybe. Picnic basket.
I'm just trying to explain this to my insurance auditor, who's trying to help me figure out how much money I can recoup when I actually hid this stuff somewhere. Anyway, some bear stole it. Anyway, so we're into applications. 10 years after successful restoration, elk historic Virginia range, the DWR, Department of Wildlife Resources, is that what it is? Yes.
Yeah.
Accepting applications for its first elk
hunt. The first elk hunt in Virginia. The first elk hunt in Virginia.
Since the last one, which was before the elk were gone.
Yes. Yeah, it was a long time
Sorry,
ago.
that was dumb for me to say.
It's just elk news, and we're excited to see elk recover in other states. So that's great.
7 steps to plan your big game hunt in Colorado.
Step number 1.
Primary draw application open March 1, which is Tuesday.
But what's the first step? I don't know if I got that in the picture. It's hunter education.
Oh, hunter education. Yeah, sorry, right there. Step 1. It's staring me in the face. Step 1.
Step 1 is hunter education. So, did you ever follow up? I didn't. I'm a bad guy. I sent you the link. I sent you the picture.
I have been.
All right. I will do it this week. I swear. I swear on the soul of my father.
I don't have any good excuses. I've been so freaking busy. And then we're to our elk folder. So we're to the final. All right. Final 4.
Okay.
Elk takes out helicopter. That's not the headline, but that's what it is.
Yeah, they were out darting some elk, and some elk got confused and jumped into the tail rotor and downed a helicopter.
Jeez Louise.
That wild country, son.
Yeah.
Wild country.
I don't know why I'm having a hard time with it, because you're right. I'm going to eventually harvest an elk, and so if I can't deal with the blood of an elk shed, because it's a pretty gruesome, he'll put it up on the thing, I think. But yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's like losing a tooth, right? It's almost like next year's antler pushes out this year's antler.
Yeah, I just don't want to see it.
And there's a little bloody transition.
I mean, I've been present when we've cleaned out animals, so for whatever reason that doesn't bother me. But seeing stuff like that, it does.
Because it's still living and
and it's like
hurting. Yeah, it's rough.
Bunch of lions is a pride, and a batch of crows is a murder. What do you call a group of elk?
I love this one. I love this story. I'm so glad we're back to it already. What do you call a group of elk? What do we call them? We call them little herds. We call them little batches. A nice little group. What's the term?
What's up, gang?
Give it to me.
What's up, gang?
It's a gang.
It's a gang.
It's a gang of elk.
Elk are the OGs.
And we're after the OG.
Yeah.
Of the gang.
Of the group. Yeah.
We want the OG. So I want to bring I'm definitely bringing gang back to elk hunting. Gangsters.
Hey, you seen a gang of elk yet? You mean
a herd? A nice gang over here?
No, it's a gang.
Yeah, it's not a group. It's not a gathering. It's there's a bunch of cows.
And Rocky Mountain Elk, got tongue twisted there. Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, I'm sorry, you're missing an opportunity here, because you say at the end of this, although we will stick with herd. No. You got to get in with the in crowd. Like you got to take this and run with it.
Gang.
You know.
What up, gangsta? So, anyways,
I just never mind. I'm not gonna say that.
We call them herds. I don't think the colloquialisms are going to really change because we want them to.
No, but
a gang sounds fun.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds fun.
All right. Finally, animals in the wild are often smarter than we give them credit for.
Oh, this is a great story.
This is our last story.
We have known this for years.
Yes.
I have personally known this for years I've known it anecdotally, and I have seen it anecdotally. But this is a BYU study.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
I haven't read it. So
tell us about it.
Researchers from BYU wildlife science professors finds that when hunting season starts, elk in Utah move off of public lands where they can be hunted and onto private lands where they cannot. And then when hunting season is over, they shift right back to public lands. So
they know where they're safe.
It's a classically conditioning situation.
Yep.
I mean, there's a perfectly operant classical. I can go technical.
You go
nerdy
way
here.
brainy on this.
I'm going a little too far, I think, even for now. But it totally makes sense to me. I've thought that for years about how animals have got to be used to these different pressures from hunters.
Yeah.
And it's funny because hunters come up with their own reasons as to why these animals disappear.
Opening day is crowded. Opening day rifle season especially. Nothing but cars on the road. And animals, you see a huge influx of vehicles.
Yeah.
And you know that if you stick around, you could die. They leave. And they're good at it. So they've learned when hunting season is.
It's a survival strategy. And as an invertebrate with a nervous system that has a fight or flight response, yeah, you're going to be programmed, and that's going to, if it's happened. I think we had a conversation about this maybe a year ago. I brought something up along the lines of how over the years the elk have had to have picked up on this type of strategy because of the programming of the way hunting seasons work. So a way to get around that is to figure out how management can be more random and how to make, so it's.
Yeah, but management, doesn't randomize where private property is.
No.
So they know where private property is, and there's a lot of stuff even in the Destination Elk, which we haven't had time to talk about yet.
Yeah.
Even in the Destination Elk, they talk about, well, we could go down there, but it's private property. Can you call them back over to public land? And they've tried.
Yeah.
And there's a couple interesting things from Destination Elk this week. First of all, the big 5-point that Cody Jacobson turned down.
Yep.
There's a saying on TikTok, for regular guys like us, if it's brown, it's down.
Yeah.
You got a raghorn. I saw a picture of a raghorn. He's like 3 on one side, 2 or 3 on the other. And he is proud as punch driving that back on, it's you get all your gear in your truck, and then you put the antlers on top to make sure everybody knows about it. He's that proud. He is, I killed an elk. So I don't need a 6x6, but
we're getting closer and closer to harvest every year, though.
Team Raghorn.
It's the frequency at which we're lobbing arrows, at least,
is increasing.
Which that's probably not the best thing to admit, but it takes effort and takes opportunities for these things to eventually come together in your ultimate success of harvest.
I think we're right in the pocket. A lot of guys on YouTube want to watch Destination Elk, and they want to watch people be successful at elk hunting.
And
they want to understand that they're not alone in their struggle to harvest, and that's why we're here.
And that's what I mentioned about Elk 101. What I like about this series is it shows the struggle.
Yeah.
There's 14 tags I started off with. There's like 7 tags left.
Yeah.
But it's brutal.
It's a struggle.
It is not easy.
I wish they told us what day of the month it was. Obviously it's in September.
Right.
The 7th of September is different than the 22nd of September. It just is. And to know if they really are going chronologically, I don't know
if they're all going at the same time versus because there's different parameters for seasons in different states. So I'm not sure. Oregon is like one of the shortest seasons, my understanding is. So if it all correlated or coincided at the same time, that'd be interesting. I wouldn't be upset if they were to say, well, we did our best 8 days and we just put the footage together based on when we could
based it on the 8 days these guys had to hunt was different from the 8 days these guys had to hunt. I would like to see it chronologically.
Sure.
Even if you guys are starting Memorial Day, you guys are ending in October, that's fine. I would like to watch that chronologically
rather than mesh together.
As a hunter, I would understand more because so many guys are like, well, the rut was late or the rut was early, right? And I've made jokes about that before on my TikTok. And, the rut, it's not the rut's fault. There's so much more to it. But understanding what time of the month it is I think important information. And then Team Angry Spike.
Yeah.
Tell me about Team Angry Spike. Because we talked about it before the podcast.
Don't want to hike out a spike. Don't want to shoot a spike. And I'm just like,
if it's brown, it's down.
That's the last animal I took a shot at and lost my arrow because it went over his back.
Yeah.
Was a spike. A gorgeous spike, too. He came in curious, and I had a great setup, and I made some fatal, non-fatal errors, I would say.
We learned some important lessons. That's what we did.
Yeah.
We learned some important lessons, and you can only learn those lessons in the field.
Yeah.
And the other thing about Team Angry Spike is I like what they're driving. It's a Suzuki Sidekick.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
It's quiet. It's little. It's nimble. It's
reminds
efficient.
me so much of what we did growing up.
I had
Subaru Brad or the
Geo Tracker.
That
Geo Tracker, man, it could go anywhere. Yeah. I love that. And it was quiet and it was cheap, very efficient. That's what I liked about it most because when you got to pay for gas. Yeah, you want to get as many miles per gallon as you can. Yeah. So anyways, I like that. And you balance that with Randy Newberg.
Sure.
And this guy, Mark Kenyon, I know I keep coming back to this book, That Wild Country by Mark Kenyon. But he goes out with Randy Newberg. He goes out with Steve Ranella. And they're all on the same page of our public lands idea. And then Randy Newberg's driving a Raptor.
Yeah.
And I respect that too. Also, I have to say, thank you, Randy Newberg. Thank you. My brother has given me a hard time for liking to shoot grouse almost as much as I like to shoot elk.
That's and
Randy
yes,
Newberg.
he'll stop on a dime.
Oh,
Dime.
Thank you, Randy.
And that's something that I've always. You know what's funny is I never thought about that till just now, because you're right, because that's something I've always marveled at Randy. And and so this is going to make me look really bad, because when I've watched Randy Newberg through the years, I'm like, yeah, that guy getting the grouse, doing his thing, that's awesome. And then when I'm out with you, it's like, we got to stop for grouse again.
What are you doing?
And it's
Why do you want to shoot a grouse?
And now I'm like,
we're elk hunters. Why are we shooting grouse? It's a grouse. Let's shoot it.
But I've gotten less resistant to that, and I've engaged a little bit better lately.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get you to get a grouse soon too.
Yes, almost there.
But anyways, thank you, Randy Newberg, for loving grouse
and helping me see the errors of my ways.
The beauty. It's our public lands, and you can all you do is harvest a grouse. And I brought grouse home and cooked them up for me and my son Woody, and he loves wild game and loves fish, and so it's something. It's at least something. I'm bringing home something. So, and there's a lot of grouse out there, and they're fun to shoot at. It's a fun sport. It's a fun game, and it's really delicious meat.
Yeah, I watched that, and I realized that I only carry one judo head with me out in the field, and I need to get new arrows. So it was that Randy Newberg inspired me in that episode, because I'm like, I need to go get some more arrows. I actually want to change the fletching style on my arrows, and I want to add a judo head to my carry-on bag.
I always have a judo armed.
Yeah,
and I should probably keep some extra judos with me.
Maybe at least that, at the very least. So,
anyway, oh my gosh, we're at an hour and 17 minutes, hour and 20 minutes. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you very much,
and we will see you back here next week for another episode of the Elk Season Podcast.
Be well. Cheers.